Yes, what a guest we've got on the date. Big Bad John meets wee Fat Si. John, thanks very much for coming on.
You're welcome, Sam.
You're the only man we've had on that's broke the transfer record everywhere he went.
No, thank you. I did enjoy a great career, really. And the good thing is with that is I don't decide how much I'm worth. I've got nothing to do with it, whether you get sold or bought.
You're not worth that money running the channels, eh?
No,
it's all about goals,
chance.
big man, isn't it?
It's all about the goals, mate, yeah.
So were you always that sort of player, a goal scorer?
Yeah, I always had the habit of getting goals, and when I was playing in the younger leagues in Swansea, I was always able to get goals and score. And I think sometimes natural goal scorers are born with that. It's very difficult to teach that, to be in the right place at the right time. And all throughout my career, and that happened at Celtic, over 100 times as well. Right throughout my career, I was always able to get goals, and I think that's probably why I got the moves that I got.
So first move was Luton. How did that come about? Because I think there was other clubs interested. Why Luton?
Well, why Luton? Because I was going back and forth to Luton since I was 10 years of age in the school holidays. I was going up with older guys like Kerry Hughes, Mark Pembridge, Kurt Norgan, all these guys that become first team players at Luton. And my father would put me on the train at Swansea, and then I would be on my own. I'd be on my own at 10 years of age. And then the older guys, the 13 and 14-year-olds that were going up from Merthyr Tydfil and the Rhondda Valleys, they would meet me in Cardiff. And I remember Mark Pembridge, when we eventually both played for the senior team for Wales. Now, Mark Pembridge played for Sheffield Wednesday, Derby. He was a solid little midfield player. And I can remember my dad saying to him, "Make sure you look after John." And he said, "Yeah, I will." So all of a sudden, I'm in the national team and I'm looking after Mark Pembridge now. But that's how it all started anyway. I'd go up through in the summer holidays and the Easter holidays from 10, 11, and then I also had trials with Leeds. I had trials with Manchester City. I had trials with Cardiff, but that was never going to happen. So eventually I chose Luton. I think one of the reasons as well, Simon, was because they had the AstroTurf pitch. So we could actually play on the first team pitch all day long. I was watching my heroes on the weekend, and then we could actually go and emulate our heroes, because you can't generally get anywhere near a first team pitch. It's like a big sign, "Keep off the grass" on the side of the pitch. You can't go on it because Luton had the Astro, and it was like that. It was like concrete, mate. Honestly, if you sort of slid, you'd graze all down the side of your leg. It wasn't like now the modernised sort of soft sort of 4G pitches now, if you like. It was literally like carpet.
And your idol at Luton was Big Mick Harford. Great education for you.
It was. Mick Harford was a brilliant centre forward. Not the quickest, like myself, but I used to watch Mick and I used to study him. Whenever we used to watch the first team, as a 16-year-old, I was an apprentice. We'd all kick off on a Saturday morning. That was when the youth team would play. We'd finish our game. We'd get back to Kenilworth Road. We'd all go for a McDonald's all together. We'd all stick together, all the youth team players, and then we'd go and watch the first team. We'd go up in the stand, and I just used to watch Mick. I used to watch Mick Harford. I never watched the team, I never watched the opposition, and I just used to see how he conducted himself as a player, as a number 9, and he would just work the width of the 18-yard box. He wouldn't go out there, never run the channels. He would just be that focal point. And he was aggressive, and I used to clean his boots. Back then we used to clean the first team players, but we were all allocated with 1 or 2 players. We used to clean the stands, we used to clean the baths, we used to scrub all the dressing room floors, and it wasn't like it is today where young players now are probably spoilt in many ways. I used to do the hard graft, in terms of cleaning and sweeping the stands all in black bags from the weekend's game. That's what we used to do. And I remember one day, Mick Harford said, "Johnny boy," he said, what boots have you got for me tomorrow? So I went in the boot room, and I've gone through a few of the lads, and I've picked out a pair of these old Adidas World Cup boots. And his feet were like size 1, not 12, 1. And they were like canoes, right? And they were all shapeless and everything. So I got them all shiny for him. And I says, I wanted that. Mick, how are they? And he said, turn them round. So I turned them around and he said, what are they? I said, oh, just your studs. He said, they're not studs. He says, go and change them studs. He said, get them long studs in there for me tomorrow. So I had to go and change the studs out of the stud box. And I got these 6 studs. It was two in the front, 2 in the middle, and 2 at the back. It was just 6 studs. It wasn't like all the modern stuff that they wear now, all the rubbers and the blades. It was none of that then. And his boots, I just held it, but I thought, oh my God, somebody's going to get them studs tomorrow. You know?
So do you think he's seen something in you, John?
Well, probably, obviously, because he would talk to me quite a lot, and like you come through at Celtic, you know, and if some of the first team boys that took you to one side and had a little chat with you, they'd be your hero, wouldn't they? You'd think, God, he took me to one side, he spoke to me.
Momo Salah.
Yeah.
So you're in the first team, and then Arsenal come calling.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I had a few clubs after me. I played at Luton. I'd made 52 appearances at Luton, and then I caught the eye of some other big clubs. Liverpool was one of them, and I'd always supported Liverpool, but I wasn't aware then that they were interested. But I've been told since. They had one of their players, ex-players, a guy called Ron Yates, great centre half for Liverpool over the years. He'd become a scout, and I heard he was come to watch me a few times. But it was George Graham and it was Arsenal that I decided to join. It was across London. Luton was near Bedfordshire. Arsenal is based in North London. So I didn't have to sort of uproot in terms of, I moved house, but I didn't have to go too far away. And it was George. He broke the British transfer record for a teenager at 2.5 million. I was the most expensive teenager in British history at the time. And it was a great feeling. It was a wonderful feeling. I'm 19 years of age and I'm off to play for Arsenal. You know, they had the England back four. It was Seaman, Dixon, Adams, Keown, Bold, Winterburn, Parler, Merson, Jensen, Bergkamp, Wright, just superstars, you know. And the morning that I signed, the first morning I met George Graham, I went in the marble halls of Highbury, and his office was like next to the pitch, big mahogany chairs and everything table. He had a piece of paper like that, like a little contract in his hand, and I was going from about £80 a week to about £3.5 grand a week, which is a lot of money at the time. And he said to me, John, he said, son, it was the Thursday morning, I'll never forget. He said, John, son, he said, if you sign for me today, he said, Kevin Campbell has pulled his groin this morning in training. Alan Smith, smudger, he said, he's done his hamstring. He said, if you sign this bit of paper for me today, he said, you will play out there on that beautiful bowling green turf of Highbury. He said, you will make your debut on Saturday alongside the current England centre-forward, who, of course, was Ian Wright. So I just said, give us that bit of paper. And I signed it, but I was always going to sign it. It was never about money.
Obviously, you said you're playing against the Arsenal back four in training.
Yeah.
Were they tough on you? Would they beat you?
They were, and another great story was I roomed with Martin Keown. And Martin, again, aggressive, physical. And Martin would say to me, he'd say, right, John, this morning in training, we'll do it for real. He said, you just come into me as if I'm Gareth Southgate or Steve Bruce or a centre half like I'm playing against on the weekend. He'd say, this morning, he says, I'm going to come up behind you and I'm going to rattle you. He says, we're going to do it like this is a game. And it was training, it was a Tuesday morning. But he said, do you know why I'm saying that, John? He said, because you will never, ever play against anybody better than me. He backed himself. He said, nobody as quick as me, nobody as good as me, and nobody as aggressive as me. He said, so if you can get the better of me today, he said, what challenge that is for you. He says, you can play against anybody. And we used to just kick 7 bells of crap out of each other.
Do you think that's missing in the game now?
Well, I don't know if it's missing in the game. I think the game has changed. I do think that almost now it's becoming a bit of a non-contact sport. I think a lot of that is to do with the referees and the people above the FA, the governing bodies. Because I think there's nothing better than watching two midfield players having a right, good scrap within the rules of the game, So I do think it's become a little bit soft at times. But hey, there's still some really good players out there. Football is still a great game to watch.
You mentioned Ian Wright. What a partner to have, eh? How good a player was he, and what kind of character was he?
He could do everything. There was nothing. When he came to Celtic, in all fairness, I think Wrighty was probably 3 or 4 years way past his best. And I think it was maybe his friendship with John Barnes. I think John brought him up here, didn't he, for a while, I believe. So I wouldn't sort of judge him too much if I was a Celtic fan on his performances at Celtic, because he didn't do great. But Wrighty was a player, very infectious. You could hear him before you could see him. You'd walk in the morning, there was a long corridor, he'd be down the... I actually was in the same dressing room as him. He'd be down there, you'd hear him, he'd be taking the mick out of people, he'd be nicking people's flip-flops and everything. And he was a wonder player. He could do anything, as I said. He could strike it, right foot, left foot. He never came short, like Craig Bellamy. He never, ever came short for the ball. He played on defenders' shoulders and just ran in behind, turned defenders all day long. And that's what defenders hate. Defenders hate running back towards their own goal. He's a midfielder's dream. If the ball came into Paul Merson, they were almost telepathic. Merce would just go, help it on, and Wrighty would be on the half turn, and he'd be down the side. Merce would take it out of his feet. Wrighty would pull off onto somebody's shoulder. He'd drop it in over his shoulder onto his chest. He could volley, he could head. He had that little bit of aggression about him, which you've seen. His tackle on Schmeichel was ridiculous. I played in a game where he kneed Steve Ogrizovic in the face, and Big Oggy's nose was...
His face was bad enough to take that, right?
Yeah, it was. But that didn't help. But he was a great lad, Wrighty, and we still keep in touch today. He's been up and played in my golf day several times, and he's one of my best friends in football, Ian Wright.
Right. You mentioned Paul Merson. Did you ever get drawn into a day out with him and Tony Adams?
Well, strangely enough, when I joined the club, Paul Merson had just gone into a priory. Because most men will have a weakness, whether that's drinking, gambling, whatever other problems, issues. Yeah, I can see that. Bad socks and all. But most men will have a weakness. Paul Merson had 4. He had the lot. And he was checked into a priory. He had a lot of problems, personal problems. And his first game back, coming out of the priory, was against AC Milan. And it's interesting, Arsenal are playing AC Milan tonight. And I played in that game. Over in the San Siro, we got beat 2-2. The back four, it's AC Milan that night was Baresi, Costa Curta, Maldini. Can't quite remember the right back, but it was a Super Cup final because Arsenal had won the UEFA Cup the year before. AC Milan had won the European Cup the year before in 1994. Arsenal beat Malmo from Sweden. So that we had the Super Cup, which the two big trophies the teams play each other. And it was AC Milan. We drew 0-0 at Highbury. Paul's first came back, Merce, and then we lost the away game. But no, Merce, he was a genius. He really was. He had unbelievable feet. His passing ability was brilliant. And people talk to me about his time at Villa, where he really, and Portsmouth. You talk to Harry Redknapp about, he almost took Portsmouth up to the Premier League. But at Arsenal, he was just, with the ball at his feet, there was he could pick a pass, and he used to play that outside of his boot, that outside of the foot, and Wrighty would arc his run, and he'd just play it into his path, and Wrighty wouldn't have to break his stride. But another guy that's remained great friends with myself, and it was that era where it was the heavyweight championships, the Lennox Lewis, Tyson, Holyfield, Buster Douglas. And that was the era, and we all used to get together with the partners, and we'd all sit up and watch the boxing and all that. It was great times.
So you never got a day out with Tony and that, nah?
Not really. Tony,
the days gone with it.
I had a few days out. You know, I was no angel, but Tony again lined us all up one morning. Like in the training ground, Tony Adams came out and he said, "Right, lads," he says, "can I have a minute with you?" So we all lined up against a wall, and we're all thinking, "Oh God, what's he done? You know, what lamppost has he gone into last night or something like that?" So we're all there. And Tony said, "Right, lads," he said, and it was quite an emotional time. He went, he said, "I'm an alcoholic." He said, "and I'm going to need your help." And all the lads were like, "Wow," you know. And that to me, that side of his character, the strength, that to me is worth more than any goal. Any captain of England, captain of Arsenal at a young age, an inspirational figure, a man amongst men, a real proper leader of men. And it's not easy to lead. It's not easy. Leading is not about grabbing older people and headbutting the walls, and that's nonsense. Leaders do it, and people follow leaders naturally. That's what they do. They stand up and they're counted for. And Tony said, "Right, come on, I'm an alcoholic, let's go and train." And I believe to this day he's not had a drink since. Inspirational. He's set up the Sporting Chance Clinic, which has helped thousands of young footballers with their personal problems, drinking, drugs, every other addiction, gambling. There's several players that have got Tony Adams. You've got a lot to thank the big skipper for, yeah.
Your most famous goal for Arsenal's the cup final, Cup Winners' Cup. Naeem done Seaman, didn't he?
That's right, yeah. Done the world's number one goalkeeper.
Do you feel like you should have won that game?
Well, I'd scored. We played Sampdoria in the semi-final at Highbury. We won 3-2, and then we played them in Genoa, and Roberto Mancini was playing for them, Lombardo was playing for them, Sven-Goran Eriksson was their manager. And they beat us 3-2, went to a penalty shootout, and I was one of the penalty takers, and I scored my penalty. So then we meet Real Zaragoza in the final at the Parc des Princes in Paris, and Gaspoye was playing for Real Zaragoza. They went ahead, and I equalised, and I'm 19 years of age. So my immediate thoughts were, wow, I'm 19, I've scored in the European final. I'm always going to be able to tell my grandkids that, you know. And it was the last kick. The game finished 1-1. It went to extra time, 1-1 first half, 1-1. And then the last throw-in, there's 10 seconds to go. And I think it's Nigel Winterburn throws it to Stevie Morrow. If Stevie flicks it on or heads it back, the referee blows up, it's full time. So Stevie Morrow's like, headed it there, it's bounced once, and Naeem has come from nowhere, from the halfway line, and smashed it, and it's beat the world's number one goalkeeper. David Seaman's like that, panicked, flapping, and it's gone like that much under the bar. And we've lost 2-1. I'm thinking, well, I'm taking a penalty. I'm thinking where I'm going to put my penalty. Am I going to put it to the keepers? On my nerves, I'm feeling all right, you know? Because a lot of the guys had been substituted as well. We'd played 120 minutes of football. But one of the reasons I was left on, because I'd scored my penalty in the semi-final, so I was trusted. You know? But apart from the dressing room where we lost on the last game of the season when the Celtic fan Scott McDonald scored 2 goals. Yeah, and then he ran away smoking a cigar. When that happened, I'd never seen or ever experienced a more quiet dressing room. Martin O'Neill was just gone. We were all devastated. Just at the way that it happened. You know, it was last minute, blah, blah, blah. The Rangers had gone to Hibs, and we could see all of a sudden the helicopter was hovering and could almost hear it, and then we just went away in the distance, you know. That night in Paris was very similar, because we couldn't believe we'd got beat. It was just a hammer blow, and it was at the death of the game. So that's how it's so difficult to take, you know. But that wasn't great. But again, as I said, it was a European final. I was 19, a great experience.
You were still at Arsenal when Wenger arrived. How did you find him?
Thought he was excellent. He changed it all. He changed it all. I think Tony Adams had got himself clean. Paul Merson had just come out of a Priory. Merce was flying, he was slim, he was fit, he was focused. had a counsellor with him on the away trips, Paul, just to keep an eye, make sure he was. It's almost like meetings, you know, addiction meetings, and Wenger straight away. It was different. It was totally. Everything was done with a watch. Everything was timed. So we'll have 10 minutes of a technical passing drill. Then we'll go for a jog, get all the lactic acid out, and then we used to do either 8v8, so we'd go into shape, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Then we do crossing and finisher. We work front men versus defence for 12 minutes. And then we'd warm down for 40 minutes, all of us in a room. Arsene Wenger there, all the players around him, literally going from your feet all the way up, calves, thighs, hips, shoulders, for another 20 minutes. And that'd be it every day. We'd warm up and we'd warm down. It was like spectacular. And the likes of Stevie Bold, Nigel Winterburn, Lee Dixon, Tony Adams, Wrighty, in their 30s, by the way, when Arsene Wenger came. He won titles, he won doubles, part of the Invincibles. And a lot of them boys put that down to one man, and that was Arsene Wenger. He put 3 or 4 years on top of their careers because they tuned in to what he wanted, the diets changes. Everybody was on it. Everybody believed in it. And that was, 21 years now Arsene's been at Arsenal. And he actually wanted me to stay.
I was going to say that.
But I had 2 of the best in front of me. I had Dennis Bergkamp, who was a genius, and I had Ian Wright. And they were a formidable. They were like Sutton and Larson before I arrived. They were just telepathic, wonderful. The crowd loved them. And Arsene said to me, John, he said, you do realise that you're next one in. He said, I'm not buying any more. He said, you're next one in. And there was times when me and Whitey played and Dennis played in the hall. We played together. And I had Harry Redknapp on the phone. Oh, Johnny, come on, son, I've been my team around you. You know what I mean, geezer? Come on, son. And I was like, oh. So I wanted to play. To my credit, I wanted to play. I didn't want to sit on the bench and be second in and things like that. I wanted to play every week. I knew it was a short career. Rush, Hughes, Saunders are all 10 years older than me and knew they were going to retire from the senior team. And for me to get into the Welsh senior team, I've got to be playing. I've got to be playing. I'm a big believer in you've got to be playing. You know, you can't be picked for your country if it's somebody playing regular and you're sitting on the bench. So I was fully aware of that. And I left. I defied Arsene Wenger. And I left Arsenal in 97. And they won the double in 98. What a good decision that was, wasn't it?
So West Ham, was it all down to Harry, West Ham?
Arsenal again, West Ham, 3.2 million, it's a record. They'd never spent that on a player. First year, did very, very well. Second year, I did the best I ever did in the Premier League. I scored 24 goals.
Second top scorer?
Second top scorer for the Golden Boot, and I missed 6 games that season.
Would you had yourself up there as the top in the league?
Well, it was Michael Owen at the time, it was Dion Dublin, it was Robbie Fowler, it was these type of players that, you know, that were playing for other clubs. And I got sent off twice that season and I missed 6 games. And I scored 24 goals, which was my best in the Premier League. And I was second, I think it was to Michael Owen, for the Golden Boot. I'd missed all them games. So that's the type of season that I had. Young Rio Ferdinand was coming through, Frank Lampard, Joe Cole, Michael Carrick, Jermaine Defoe.
How good were the kids?
Oh, they were fantastic. Harry would, if we were a bit short of numbers, or if 1 or 2 players on a Friday were carrying knocks, we would get 1 or 2 of the lads from the youth team to come over and just make the numbers up and join in and to balance the teams out. And it was a good experience for the young ones as well to be called over. And they'd come over and they were the best players.
How was Harry for you two?
Harry was brilliant. Me and Harry used to go to the Dogs on a Thursday night. We used to go to Walthamstow Dogs. Wow. And I'd have a glass of Coke, he'd have a glass of wine, we'd both have a steak and study the form and all that. And I was playing for him, you know. Because I owned dogs and everything at Walthamstow. I owned horses at Lambourne, down near Newbury there. So, and Harry's a massive racing man, you know, Martin as well. Martin liked to bet, Martin O'Neill, and we'd often talk about things, you know, and have a little secret bet between ourselves. But it was great. It was great. But Harry was a character. He's a really good character. Great with the players. When we're losing, not my fault, I didn't bring him in. When we're winning, it's all about his tactics.
Tactics,
yeah. I brought him in for a really different class. He's been different class for me. You know?
Well, your most controversial incident. You had wee Berkovic tune on a size 10 Puma King.
Yeah.
Well, how did it come about? Just lose your head?
Well, what happened was we'd had a meeting. We lost 3-0 to Blackburn on the Saturday. This was a Monday morning, or a Tuesday actually. We played in Southampton, I think the next day. And in that meeting, a few harsh words were said. We'd lost 3-0. And Razor Ruddock was in there, Ian Dowie, Lamps, Frank, all of us, Eyal, myself. And we were woeful. And one or two things were said, and Eyal didn't like it. He stormed off. And so then we started training, and unbeknown to my knowledge, there was somebody at the side of the training ground. Not that this is, not that I'm trying to defend myself at all. It's the biggest regret in my career, actually doing that. I shouldn't have never reacted that way, although he hit me first.
Oh, did he hit you? Huh?
He swung a punch at me first, and I reacted. I shouldn't have done it. It was a poor reaction. I put my family through a lot. It wasn't so much me. It's always been about my family. People can say what they want about me. I've been called everything. I've been called some of the worst names. I've had the biggest stick playing against Cardiff because I'm Swansea, playing against Rangers because of the Celtic, playing against Tottenham because I'm Arsenal, you know. But I don't care. I'm not bothered. I've got thick skin, you know. I can deal with that. But when it then affects my family, that's when it becomes difficult. So the press were knocking my mother and father's door in Swansea, you know, what's it like to have brought up an absolute lunatic and things like this. My poor mother's like, well, John's never ever been in trouble, you know, the police have never been to the door. And so I shouldn't have reacted the way that I did. And as I said, we went out after that meeting and I tackled Eyal from behind, and he was a brilliant little player, by the way. He set up a load of my goals when we were playing together. And I tackled him from behind. And as he got up, I went to sort of pick him up to say sorry for the tackle. It was quite a late tackle. And he just turned and he went like that. And it wasn't a punch, he just turned. And then my reaction was, and I just kicked out and I booted him. And it was wrong, it was caught on camera. I was front page of every national news, very similar to this Jamie Carragher incident, which is despicable, by the way, spitting at a young 14-year-old girl. I hope that, you know, Jamie's apology and everything and what he's doing with the family, I hope that can be in some way sort of looked at, and, you know, whether Jamie can go do some charity work and just show what a good guy he is. I've been in his company a few times. You can't, there's no place for that, and I have to say that. But it was very similar to that. The world just went woof, and everybody has a say. It's on every news bulletin. It's on every news bulletin. It's on the front page of every national newspaper for weeks. And that's what happened to me. And I was 21. Difficult.
People forget how young you were, eh?
Somebody so young, you know.
But do you think that was the end of your West Ham career?
Probably, yeah. I should never have done it. And to this day, people don't talk about my 45 goals in 70 games at West Ham and how I kept them up single-handedly on my own. People talk about the Berkovic incident. You know, and that's a shame. But listen, I did it. I've always just accepted it was wrong. And I've been in Eyal's company since. You know, Wales played Israel a couple of years ago there in a qualifier. And we specifically met at the ground, and the press turned up. I don't know, obviously somebody'd set it up and everything. The press were there, took pictures of me and Eyal. We bumped into each other's families over in Euro Disney as well, not long after that. So we've remained, you know, decent afterwards, really, because we were really good friends at the time as well. But as I said, you know, I have to put it on record that I should never have done that, and I've always had to live with that, because it's always like gone before me. Because when people spoke about John Hartson, they went, do you know what, John, good lad, good company, strong, good in the dressing room, good team player, decent in the air, good touch. Good lad, it was all right, John, but did you see that? So I always felt people have, like, you know, we're all very judgmental of people anyway before meeting them, I think. You don't like him, well, hold on a minute, you've never met him. I'm judged because of the colours that I wear. I'm hated because I played for Celtic by some quarters. People never met me. When they meet me, they go, do you know what, you're actually all right. I know, mate, yeah, I think I'm all right, yeah. Do you know, because that's just a general perception people have. We're judgmental, we judge people even before. And I felt that incident, people might have thought, bit of a thug, you know, and I wasn't. I was aggressive, but I never elbowed people off the ball. I never went in over the top to do people. That wasn't my style. That's not clever, that's not brave. You know, I always loved the physicality, the physical side of it, you know. Like Mark Hughes, like these type of players, backing in, that was my strength. That's why I had this great career. That's why managers paid big money for me, because of my physical presence, you know. But as I said, I put the record straight there. It was a bad decision, and I should never have reacted that way.
But that stuff probably went on every day at your next club, Wimbledon. Crazy
Yeah,
gang. They probably signed you because of it. Come on, give us the best crazy gang story. How mad was it?
Well, Vinny was still there for a couple of weeks when I arrived, and I remember one of the first games we played was Liverpool home. Now, Joe Kinnear's team talk went a bit like this, right? He went, right, lads, he says, we have got a tough game today. There's a few little beeps in between that, right? Beep, 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 beep. We have got a tough game today. He said, unless 3 or 4 of the Liverpool players have contacted flu through the night, he said, unless their goalkeeper has the worst game of his life, unless Ian Rush misses 4 open goals, we have got no chance today. That was his team talk. It was quite inspiring, actually, you know, quite motivational. So he said to Vinnie Jones, he said, Vinny's at the back of the peg and he's dancing away and the music's blaring. So he said, Vin, he said, son, he said, my captain. He said, I want you today, he said, to mark Steve McMahon. He said, Steve McMahon, warrior, covers every blade of grass, kicks everybody within 5 yards of him, box to box, top player, England international. He said, Vinny, he said, I want you today to mark Steve McMahon. Vinny turned around, he said, what? For life, boss, or just a game? That's what he said to me. But no, it was great in Wimbledon. We got relegated, but I could have gone to other different clubs. But obviously, Mick Harford was the assistant manager there. Joe Kinnear, Vinny, we were all friends. Vinny's a godfather to my daughter, Rebecca. Rebecca was she's 19 tomorrow, my eldest daughter. So we become great friends, and you know, again, we speak now and again. But it was a little bit mental at Wimbledon, you know, and we had the chairman, Sam Haman, was crazier than all the players.
What sort of stuff did you do?
Well, the crazier trick that you threw, then the bigger contract you get. He loved players like Ben Thatcher, and he loved players like Vinny, and he loved players like Marcus Gale was a great leader, Gailey. He had Robbie Earle, and you know, he would just say things like, you know, you get 20 goals, son, and I'll get you a Ferrari. The Ferraris never came, you know. It was always just giving you that little bit of an, you know. But no, it was great days, great. I wouldn't swap it. I wouldn't swap being at Wimbledon, although we got relegated. You know, so good times. Good
times. You went to Coventry and then approached for Rangers, and you went up for a medical.
Yeah.
What went wrong?
Well, you'd have to ask them, because they made a mistake, big mistake.
Who was it that you met to sign for Rangers?
I was playing for Wales. And on the Friday morning, we got a telegram through to the FA, to the training centre where we were in Cardiff headquarters. And Mark Hughes called me into his room and he said, John, look at that. He said, Rangers have just bid £6 million for you. He said, it's been accepted by Wimbledon. He said, you've got to get down to the private airport in Cardiff, which was about 10 minutes away from where we were training. He said, there's a private jet, David Murray's private jet is going to pick you up. It's going to take you to Glasgow. So I phoned my dad straight away. I says, Dad, I said, I'm joining Glasgow Rangers. I had no affinity with either club. I'd only been to Scotland once in my life. And I thought, great, I'm signing for Glasgow Rangers. Flew up with my dad in Sir David Murray's private jet, 40 minutes from Cardiff to Glasgow. I arrived in Glasgow airport. It was like Michael Jackson was arriving. There was press everywhere. And And then I was taken in a car, pulled up outside Ibrox. I walked down the tunnel, and Ronald de Boer was on the pitch, signing for Rangers on the same day. So I've gone, Ronald, and he's looked over. I said, give me 2 minutes, I'll do it with you. The old scarves. He's gone, brilliant, John, brilliant. So I've gone up the tunnel. Bomber Brown, Konchelskis, Alberts, they were in the dressing rooms. And I was whizzed off to go and do a medical at Ross Hall. They did a little scan on my ankle. Didn't even touch my knee, didn't do a scan on my knee. And I think they scanned my back. 20 minutes. I came back to the... they might have scanned my knee. Of course they did, because that's what the medical... So a little scan, took about 20 minutes. And then right back to Ibrox. I went upstairs to Sir David Murray's office. Again, it wasn't about money. I think it was about whatever it was, £15,000 a week, 5-year contract, rise-in, goal bonuses, European bonuses, whatever it was. And then I've come back downstairs. They've taken me into a little private little... it wasn't the treatment thing where the lads are going, the physio's office. There was a little office to the side of that. And then Dick Advocat come in, and he's looking really down because I'd met him an hour before, and he was like really excited. And he just sat me down, and he was very apologetic, and he said, John, he said, I'm very sorry. He said, we can't proceed with the deal. I said, well, why, what's happened? And he said, there's something showed up on the medical, and it's something with your knee. And I was signing a 5-year contract for Glasgow Rangers, along with Ronald de Boer. So I pretty much dodged a bullet that day. But no disrespect. People have said, well, was it just a case of, was it a bit of a scam? Were they really going to sign you? And I genuinely believe they were genuinely going to sign me, but I genuinely believe as well that something did show up on the medical, and that was the real reason. And then I didn't sign. Off back down to Wales. I'm naturally disappointed. And then I was linked with a few different clubs while I was still at Wimbledon, and then I went to Celtic. And I went to Coventry, should I say, with Gordon Strachan. And then while I was doing pre-season training up in the student halls at Dundee University, St Andrews there, Gordon used to take us out onto the dunes and everything and say, this is what Fergie used to do to us, proper training, running up and down on the sand dunes, on your cars. He's so you know how fit Gordon Strachan is. You've got to be fit to play in his teams. We finished training one day. Gordon's come to the back of the bus and he says, yeah, son, there's someone to speak to you. And he threw me his phone. And I went, hello? And he went, hi, John. He said, it's Martin O'Neill here. Wow. I said, oh, hello, Martin. How are you? He said, good, son. He said, look, he said, I've been speaking to Wimbledon. He said, I'm going to sign you. He said, I've put the relative bid in. He said, and let me just put your mind at ease. He said, unless you've got a hole in your heart, son, he said, I'm going to sign you. So straight away I was buzzing because I thought, well, there'll be no bleeding medical for the start. Because I'd failed 4 medicals. I failed at Charlton, Coventry first time around, Spurs and Rangers. Couldn't pass a medical. So I'm starting to doubt now, where's my career going? I'm 25 years of age. And I've played 200 or 300 games up to then, Premier League games, played for my country. And I'm starting to worry, am I ever going to get through a medical? Martin put my mind at ease. He says, while you're up in St Andrews, he says, I'll come up. He says, we'll meet up. He said, we'll get the contract done. He said, there'll be some press pictures there. He says, and I'm delighted to have you on board. And I said, oh, brilliant. So I know I'm signing for Celtic within the next week. And then slowly then it gets out in the papers. Things always get out. And then I signed for Celtic in 2001, the year after they won the treble. And I had a great 5 years. I had to be a bit patient initially because they just won a treble and Chris and Henrik had done exceptionally well. Scored 66 goals between them the previous year. They'd won the treble. But once I got in the team, I never came out. I never came out of the team for 5 years. I
think it took you a few games to get your first goal. What was that, down to a Gats crossing?
Might have been, yeah. Couldn't cross a bridge, did you?
But were you surprised with the intensity of the Celtic and Rangers thing when you actually signed for Celtic?
Yeah, you've got to be. You'd have to be.
How soon did it hit you?
Straight away.
Didn't it really?
Straight away. I struggled initially, and then I loved them because I had a great record against them. I scored 8 goals, should have been 10. I scored 2 goals that were legitimately ruled off for offside, proven to be well onside. So I should be sitting here with 10 or 15 goals. I got 8, very proud of the 8. We had the Indian sign at times over Rangers. We had a wonderful team. I played in, and what was really special about our team we played in was we were all around about 28, 29. We were all very experienced. You look at the back four: Tomo, Rab, Didier, Valharan, Mialbi, Varga, and Bobo. Then our midfield was Lambert, Lennon, Petrov was younger, myself, Henrik, Chris. Sean was exceptional, Moravchik, Lubo. So, we were a team of men, really. And Martin didn't say a lot. Martin just said, just go and win. Because the importance of winning is, the game is all about winning. If you're winning, you can't fail to go unnoticed. Just win. No matter how you win, get it done. And we had players in the team to go and win games and to win and to defend. And we really, getting to a European final, suggested that we were a very good team.